Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dan, and this is Forlorn Hobbies.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now, today I want to have a look at something that I'm looking forward to in this new year. So it's not quite New Year, New Army, although it will obviously involve new armies. It's New Year, New Rule Set. Now, probably about a month ago, just before Christmas, I was kind of looking for a new challenge, a new rule set that could help to reduce the amount of large-scale games that I play to make my hobby a bit more manageable. And I was also looking at something that I could kind of use as a way to help my eldest son on his kind of introduction into historical wargaming. And so I was looking for a kind of light but interesting set of rules. And I've kind of seen this game being played a couple of times at my local club and had a brief flick through the books when I had 5 minutes spare whilst there. And for this kind of new motivation project kind of thing, I decided to take the plunge. Now, I'm talking about the Pillage game, which is available from Victrix, and it is a English translated rule set from the French version of the game that was released by Triskel Interactive and written by Guilliame Rousselot. Apologies if the pronunciation is terrible. I do not speak French very well. So I've had the book for about a month now, and kind of at a point where I've not played any games, but I thought for like a development series, I would document my kind of first impressions of the rule set and of the system, just to kind of set out how I think it will go, how I think it will play, just to see if after getting some experience, if that reality kind of changes things, and whether that's a positive change or kind of a little bit of a disappointment. I don't know at this point, but I just thought it would be interesting to set out my initial thoughts. So, first of all, the book itself, it was a very easy read, and it has a really clear and precise layout with a lot of good images and background information that you kind of expect from those big, chunky kind of rule books that most systems have, particularly looking at Games Workshop here, where they have the clear background part, the display part, and then the rules themselves. Now, the background information, the rules, and the imagery are all kind of blended in, so you'll have a little sidebar with some interesting facts or descriptions, and then you'll have clear diagrams or even just kind of epic battle dioramas alongside the rule set, so it kind of breaks it up nicely, giving you a good kind of visual engagement to read. It also is about the same size as a source book or codex, so it's not a great big hefty tome that you have to lug around with you everywhere and then flick around for ages trying to find that special rule that's hidden on page, I don't know, like 200 and something on paragraph here, there, and everywhere. It's clear, precise. The contents page is a great directive. Like sometimes contents can just be a list of things that are vague and not really helpful, but I think this is set out as probably one of the most clear rule sets that I have seen in a long time. Now, as well as the main rules, it offers scenarios and list building all in one place, which is great. No extra books will be needed, but I would hope that there would be some supplements later on down the track that maybe broaden the scope of like the periods that it cover, but I will get to that a bit later. But what is also interesting about this rulebook is that it's kind of quite old school in a way, where it not only covers the rules and stuff that I've just mentioned, but incorporates a kind of how to like start collecting guide covering all the aspects of the hobby, from collecting miniatures, prepping your miniatures, painting them, to also looking at terrain and how to build simple terrain. Gives you the free tokens that you might need to like kind of scan and print out. So it's pretty much an all-in-one book. And even if you're not overly interested in playing the game, I think it's still quite a worthwhile purchase just to read and experience it, because you never know, it might change your mind and think, oh, here's a good game that I'm just going to crack out. But for someone that's particularly interested in the Dark Ages and wargaming, I don't think you could go wrong by just picking up a copy, even if it's just to take a few ideas for your pre-existing games and collections. So now I want to move on to giving my initial thoughts on the rules themselves. Now, I'm going to just add a little kind of bit of background in my kind of approach to this. So I've played many types of games throughout my long kind of interaction with this hobby. And one of my favorite games that I've played for the best part of 20 years, well, more than 20 years now, is the Middle-earth strategy battle game in all its kind of editions. Now, my first thought of looking at this rule set was that there was a clear kind of, not intentional per se, kind of likeness with the Middle-earth rule set, but as a player, it was a comfortable kind of coincidence, so that I felt that I could, without having played a game yet, I feel in this moment that because of my Middle-earth knowledge, I don't feel uncomfortable just to pick up this rule book and then play a game. It reads very simply to follow the rules. That's not a negative comment, that's a huge positive, because I think the best games are simple to learn but hard to master, and Middle-earth is a perfect example of that. Whereas any old idiot can play the game, but the depth is on the player to build tactics, to learn how to work the special rules together, to kind of create that kind of in-depth, immersive experience that you want from the game, because you don't want to be arguing over the mechanics of all this, the minutiae of the rules. Now, obviously, it's not a copy of the Middle-earth game. There are clear differences, but just the kind of general mechanics. You have the initiative, which is basically priority, and then it's you go, I go in movement, you go, I go in shooting, and then combat. Now, the biggest difference when explaining that from Middle-earth, for those of you that have played Middle-earth, is that the way that combat is resolved or hits from shooting is that your weapon will have a to hit roll that's specific to that weapon or piece of war gear. You roll that on a dice. If you're successful, it counts as a wound. and then the target has a role that is specific or dependent upon how well armored it is as to how it can negate that wound. Now, that's the basic mechanics. I think you could quite easily pick up this book and play a game with it and be very comfortable with the rules, not the in-depth rules, but the basic mechanisms that you can then build upon in further games in just an evening with no gaming experience necessary. Now, that kind of sounds as if, oh, well, this is a bit simple. What's the point? And the depth to the game comes in the special rules that are additional to the basic mechanisms. Now, the special rules here, I'm not going to go into them because there's a lot to cover, but it includes things obviously like pillaging and looting, setting fire to buildings and kind of bits of terrain, just to kind of add that kind of more realistic experience to the scenario. It focuses on things like weather and has benefits or detractions that are faction specific in how they handle the rain or bogs or the darkness, which I think is something that I've not really come across before in gaming. So I'm looking forward to playing that. There is a very concise list of units that you can take, which I'll cover a bit later. But the characters have clear and specific roles. And when I say characters, I don't mean just your kind of your war leader, but things like your standard bearer, healers, berserkers, huskars. Each unit type has a clear role to play, which obviously has benefits and enhancements added to it. That really creates that kind of skirmish narrative that you want to use as more of a storytelling rather than a big pitched battle that's just, I'm going to absolutely destroy my opponent, and that's kind of the end of the game. Now, one of the more interesting things as well that has been added is the use of ships. I mean, we're talking about the Dark Ages in particular. So, you've got Vikings pillaging and plundering all around Europe at this time. So to be able to have specific roles for the inclusion of ships and boats and even full-on naval combat as part of this game is something that, I'm really looking forward to trying out. So rules-wise, I think it looks very interesting. I think from the criteria that I'd set out in the beginning, I think it looks like it's a very easy game to kind of get into, but I think there is enough depth there that it will be a really enjoyable but still challenging experience once you have the kind of the knowledge and the mastery of the game. And I think that is probably the best kind of evaluation of it that I can give, is that it is simple to learn but hard and challenging to master. So the next thing I'm kind of focusing on is the factions that are involved in this rule set. Now, the overall kind of focus of the rule set is the Dark Ages. As I quote from the foreword, it's from Lindisfarne to Stamford Bridge. So that kind of key height of Viking exploration and raiding is the setting for the game. So the factions that are obviously involved are the usual suspects in Dark Age wargaming: the Vikings, obviously, Anglo-Saxons, and Normans. But interestingly, there are faction-specific rules for the Irish, Scots and Picts, the Welsh, Bretons, and the Carolingian Franks. Now, that is quite a large variety and flavour that you can add to your games. Looks like there's quite a few different settings. Kind of, if you're focusing on Viking raids, that pretty much covers all of the coastlines of the British Isles and of northern Francia, or France as we now know it. But interestingly, they offer a generic list as well for the time. So this is kind of really an infinite well of possibility. So you can use it to cover the other kind of factions at the time. There is a map that I am looking at in the rulebook which depicts the Kingdom of Galicia, the Cordoban Caliphate, the Italian kind of duchies and kingdoms, the Eastern Roman Empire. Obviously, we can't not look at Byzantium in this game, and given my love of the Roman Empire, that will be something that I will be exploring at a later date, because I obviously live in a world where I do not believe that the events of 1453 actually happened, and that's how I can sleep comfortably at night with that thought in my head. But offers also some more kind of out there factions like the Bulgarian Khanate and the Kingdom of the Khazars as well. Now, this generic list doesn't limit your kind of choices within the Dark Ages. I think the rule set is, for a skirmish game, is fantastically adaptable to different ages, and I think there is nothing stopping you from using the generic list and picking it up and putting it back into the days of antiquity and having clashes and skirmishes with the Greeks and the Persians, or the Romans, maybe some small conquests of Alexander, or even further back to the days of Assyria and Babylon, or the kind of first kingdoms of the Bronze Ages. I don't think there's a limit that you can put on it going backwards. It just gives you a very basic kind of list that builds a soldier with a hand weapon and shield, for example, which you can just pick up and replicate in your chosen area of interest. It can also likewise go further forwards, and you can have the late Middle Ages. Like, the only really cut-off point, I would say, is the introduction of black powder-based weapons, or gunpowder. So I don't know if it will be suitable kind of post 1450 onwards, but I think with a few tweaks, anything is possible, because it's the mechanics of the game. You know, you can easily house rule in some kind of rules for firearms, and you have the basis of a very good skirmish game to play with. So the final thing that I want to consider is the list building element of the game. Now, I like the look of it. It adds a little bit of flavour with having gold pieces to buy your warband. Now, the caveat in the list building options are you must have a chieftain, which is your leader. You may have one single banner on the battlefield, a single warhorn, and 25% maximum of ranged weapons in the army. So if you have 10 models, only 3 could be archers because you round up. Cavalry, again, 25% limit. So I think that's some good kind of basic structural goals. And for every chieftain, you can include up to 20 warriors. Now, the thing that I like about the list building is the flexibility in like your kind of loadout options. It's not you're playing a game where you hire, I don't know, like a Viking group like Saga, and you have to have Vikings with spears or Vikings with hand weapons. Every model in the game is unique in terms of their loadout. Now, it's your choice. You can arm them all with spears and shields if that's how you want to arm them. But you have that flexibility to do what you want to do. Now, there are 3 forms of protection. There is the unarmored, which is the base free model. Well, it's not a free model. You pay the 10 gold to have a warrior, but you can be unarmored, which is the lowest defense, or you can add armor and you can add a shield, and you can kind of build it up from there. Again, melee weapons. You can have an improvised weapon like a spoon or something that is free, but obviously the less you pay, the kind of worse it is in game. That isn't saying that's not worth taking or you always have to pay for something, but generally the more you pay, the more it improves your kind of model's ability in the game. Then obviously you can add the specialized equipment, where this is horses, banners, warhorn, warhounds. Now, from my first looks, I've written a couple of lists, and I think I've got a quite balanced approach in that kind of flexibility, and it's given me a force that I think looks like a force. My only kind of concern is, like, without playing the game, is that I don't know whether certain things are worth the points or whether, you know, there are things that I'm not seeing, because obviously I don't know how it approaches on the tabletop. But it does seem that some things are rather costly. But I think that is mainly from my approach, where I've looked at this rule set and I've gone, oh, it looks like Middle Earth. It should play like it should. The list building should be similar to Middle Earth in the fact that I can buy a Warrior of Rohan, for example, for like, let's say 10 points with a shield and a throwing spear. But if I wanted to replicate that model in this game, I'm going to be paying 3 times the amount in gold for it. And yes, I'm well aware it's a completely different game and a different system, but that's kind of where my head's at in the list building. So I'm sure that once I've played a couple of games, I think I'll have a much better understanding of what to spend gold on. Is it necessary to spend gold on, say, armor all the time or improved weaponry? I think that comes with experience, and this links back to me saying about the rules. You know, it's easy to learn. Writing a list is easy, but refining that list is almost a challenge in itself, which comes with time and knowledge of the game. So I think it looks like a challenge in itself, and I don't think there's a right or wrong way to go about building lists. I think I gave my son the book and went, go write yourself a list, and I dread to think what kind of things he's chosen from the rule of cool, but I will see when he gives me his shopping list for what he needs. Now, the other interesting element of this is looking at the specific factions mentioned in the book. The points are not the same. The ability to have everything is also not the same. So I'm looking at the Normans, for example. Their horses cost less gold because obviously they are renowned for their horsemanship and cavalry. Whereas some factions can't take horses or banners, for example, like the Irish, Scots, and Picts. That's blended into one kind of list. But they get free spears or free slings and javelins because they're more kind of petty raiders and improvised militia as opposed to well-seasoned troops. And then when you come to the generic list, you have access to everything. So the unit types, you have the standard warrior and the chieftain, which is available to everyone. You obviously have berserkers as a unique character type. That's not going to be available to everyone. Huskars, again, very Saxon. They're like your bodyguard. You also have healers and wagons, which have interesting special rules and effects on your overall abilities as a warband. Now, the generic list allows you to take any of those and come up with something suitable for whatever you want to do with your warband. Now, I think it could be open to abuse, but I think it unlocks far more doors in terms of kind of that immersive gameplay that you want in historical gaming than that kind of power game kind of look an abuse could cause in that kind of sense. Now, the other thing you can spend gold on is a thing called talents. Now, talents are kind of traits that you can give to your chieftains. There are generic talents and faction-specific talents that you can pay gold for that will further enhance your warband's abilities within the game. Now, this could be something from how they interact with obstacles and types of terrain. It could be benefits to combat, benefits to shooting, survivability, morale, that kind of thing, which I think gives further character to the force that you are building, and especially the kind of faction specific ones, it really kind of adds that kind of realisticness to kind of that culture's way of approaching warfare, or like kind of survivability in that era. So all in all, I think to really get a good understanding of this, I need to play some games, and I'll be interested to see how much this opinion changes once I've got a few games under my belt. So in all, I think this is a really promising set of rules that I am looking forward to pursuing. But most importantly, I think I'm excited about having the opportunity to share this with my eldest. After all, I've spent years indoctrinating him with a historical interest. So it'll be nice to see us have that kind of extra bond building through this game. Now, I do take him to some games with me, and he does get involved, but I think this will be able to help him make that step from just being a dice monkey to actually starting to build his own understanding of rules and do something for himself, rather than me look at him and go, you better roll a 6 or you're walking home, in crucial moments of games. So I think moving forwards, we will obviously be picking our army lists and building our warbands. Now, I will probably document in a video this kind of process separately, and then hopefully we'll have a few games coming up as well. Now, I don't want to put a specific timeline on it, but hopefully kind of by the summer, this should kind of be not done as a series, but kind of well established with the warbands done and a couple of games under our belt and documented. So I hope that my thoughts have at least encouraged you to kind of consider a new rule set, because I don't think I have anything negative to say about it. And I think looking at skirmish games in that era, I don't think it's a bad purchase. Even if you play games like Saga or the Lion Rampant, for example, there's nothing that you need to do really with your miniatures to try this rule set. It's a good tool to have in the arsenal just to bust out in a game, just to change things up a little bit. So with that, I will hopefully see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Until next time, enjoy your hobby.